Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HandfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HandfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HandfordCapital.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Tough Decisions podcast. This is your hosts, Dan and Dennae, and we're here this Friday to finish our discussion that we started last Friday about the meeting that we had with our managers and some of the things that they said to help us know how they were doing in their respective offices. And last week we talked about some of the things that they found were a weakness or maybe something that they need help with in their place. And this week, as promised, we're going to go over some of the things that they said they felt like they were doing well and really succeeding at.
Yeah, so we want to dive into that. And just to recap from the last couple of weeks, if you're just joining us, the last two Fridays, like Dennae said, we've been diving into our own practice and our own businesses and trying to give you kind of, uncover it a little bit and let you have a little peek inside to let you know what's happening so you can learn about some things that we're doing right now. And so the last couple of weeks, we talked about a meeting that we had with all of our staff, not all of their staff, I would say mostly just the management team. So all of our corporate team, our office managers, and anybody who has any oversight over another person, those were the people that we had a meeting with. And so with our organization of about right at about 50 employees, we had close to about probably 11 or 12 people, maybe 13 people, 14 people, somewhere around in there in the room, and got a lot of really good feedback. So I'd encourage you to go back and listen to the last two Fridays. There's a lot of golden nuggets that were hidden throughout those. Even for us, as we're continuing to work through some of these things, it's really helped us to open our eyes as well.
Yeah, so let's jump right in and start with some of those things that were positives. And just so the audience, our audience that's listening to us, knows exactly what the question was, I'm going to go ahead. It wasn't just a positive. You specifically asked the managers to tell you what they felt like their department was really good at. So what was the strength of their department as a whole, not the manager necessarily, although I think it's interesting to see that the manager is oftentimes reflected in the department or the other group, but what did their department do really well?
Yeah, so just to kind of kick it off, I'll start off by talking about one of the running themes through the offices, which was not just one particular office, but all of the offices, as well as the various departments and divisions, really feel like they do really good with their patient care and with that patient satisfaction. And I think that's a really strong thing for us, because I think that as a company, that's one thing that's allowed us to continue to excel and to allow us to be able to continue to grow. And it also allows us to have employees that are more or less family members or team members that really feel like they're part of something, because they see that satisfied patient. They see those treatments that they're doing on patients that are really helping them. And for those of you who are just joining us and don't really know a lot about us, our background is that we have several different businesses, and of those businesses, 5 of them are medical offices in South Carolina. We do a lot of regenerative medicine, prolotherapy, PRP, stem cell therapy, those kind of things. And patient satisfaction is a very key thing for us.
Yeah, so that was one of the strengths that kind of across the board. One of the other ones that came from our practice support center manager was that she felt like her group was really good at following up with patients and also having a sense of urgency about patient needs. And I thought that was interesting. I think that's good. I think that's one of the things that is possible that it could be a weakness in that place, because they answer the phones a lot, but they don't get to see the patients face to face. And so I think it's possible that they could lose a little bit of touch with the actual patients. But she seemed to think that they did a really good job of maintaining that sense of urgency from the time that they got that initial phone call until, the patient was starting in treatment, which could be anywhere from, 3 or 4 days to maybe a couple of weeks. So I thought that was really good. And that was encouraging to know that, she was constantly keeping that before them.
And that is one of the departments that is the most vital for our practice, because it is where all of the new patients, the new incoming people that are saying, hey, and they're raising their hand saying, hey, we want to come see you in your office and see what you're all about. And that being strong and patient follow-up and being able to handle those patients properly is a very vital role. And a lot of times it's kind of an underappreciated role because they really are the lifeblood of the practice. Now, there's a lot of things that we do to make those phones ring for them, but when those phones ring, we need to make sure that the practice support center representatives are handling those patients properly. And for those of you who don't know how we're set up, we have 5 offices, and they're all about an hour to an hour and a half away from each other. But we have a centralized practice support center, which is a centralized center where all of the new patient calls go into, and they handle a lot of things for the various, satellite offices. They handle a lot of all of the new patient and inbound calls. They handle, records requests and things like that, that they're coordinating a lot of that. So there's definitely some other departments that are helping along the way, but that department has a very vital role in the business for the incoming new patients.
Right. Again, I thought that was good, and I was glad to hear that from the manager, and that she thought that was, something that they needed to be good at as well. What was another one for you that you remember?
Well, I think one of the other things was kind of goes along with the patient care and patient satisfaction was the post-procedure care, the pre and post-procedure care, being able to explain to patients before a procedure happens, what they're going to expect, and then, how to prepare for that procedure before they get to the office, and then even while they're at the office. And then also after, of course, the procedure's done, being able to explain to the patient in a very, simple terms what they need to do to be able to care for, whatever, treatment that they had in the office was.
Following that, we had our operations manager talk about, one of the strengths as far as the administration or the operations was making decisions based on analytics, not, which way is the wind blowing today or how are we feeling about this, but actually being able to get hard evidence or hard number information to support any decisions that are made going forward. And I think that's really important. You've done a lot of work, especially of making sure that we see the numbers that we need to see, and so we can keep pushing ahead when we're going in the right direction, but that we can also change directions if we need to before things get bad.
Well, and I think, one of the reasons why we continue to improve these processes and make a lot of decisions based on these analytics is the fact that in the past, we neglected that. We always had a system in place to look at that, but it wasn't the best system. And so we had to continually improve that, because I remember back before when we only had one office, and we would look at the numbers on, as far as, in our offices, we look at new patient flow. So the number of new patients coming into the office, the revenue generated into the office, a lot of different numbers, patient visit averages, and dollar amounts per patients that are coming in. And so we would look at those numbers, but it was usually on a quarterly basis, because we're in the business all the time and we were seeing those numbers. And so it wasn't as hard for us to keep up with them. And so to be able to pull those numbers, it was really just on a quarterly basis.
Well, you're right. And when we were there on a day-to-day basis, we had a feel for what was going on, and you could just tell from the activity of a day, a lot of times, how things were going. But I think this is really a lesson that we learned through starting the multiple locations, because, every time we've started a location, there's a lot of energy and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into getting that new location up. And, your time is really just put all into this new venture. But inevitably, we would see a little bit of a lull in one of the other locations because it was being, for lack of a better word, neglected a little bit. And so, over time, we have figured out what numbers it is that we really need to have a handle on to know how everything is doing. And once you figure out what those are, then you can get them on a regular basis and you can really stay on top of things a lot better.
I go back to when we opened up that second office, and when we opened up that second office, and I know you're smiling right now because when you know what I'm getting ready to say, but when we opened up that second office, we were trying to open up that second office as a lean machine. And so we didn't find the best location, and we didn't want to hire too many staff because it was the second location. So we were still kind of, iffy as to whether or not it was going to succeed the way we wanted it to succeed. And so we were trying to run it as lean as possible. And so all of our management team, we took from the main office and just basically transported them into the new location, and the new location was doing really well.
We were rocking the new location for sure.
Awesome. I mean, we were profitable in the first 2 months in that location, and it was just doing really well. We did a lot of things right, but the problem was we dropped the ball on the analytics on the other location, on the first location. And that's one of the first things we decided to do was we can't just look at them on a quarterly basis, because by the time you look at it at the end of the quarter, it's too late. You should have pivoted.
It's way too late.
And so at that point, we decided, well, we need to start looking at these numbers on a monthly basis. And so every month we were looking at these numbers. Well, then as we started to add on the third and the fourth and the fifth, we decided, all right, we need to start looking at these numbers every single week. And it can be a little bit daunting to do that, but that's why we have multiple people that are running these numbers for us and that are keeping up with these statistics. And every Monday morning, we get our financial reports. We get our financial reports from our accounting team. We get our financial reports from our revenue cycle management team. And then we also get our overview on the incoming marketing information from the practice support center manager on, number of phone calls coming in, how many of them were new patients, what was the booking percentages by representative that answered the phone calls, and who's talking on the phone too long, and how many of these calls got missed. And so you have certain, criteria so you can kind of see how the practice and how the business and how the marketing is doing, so that if you need to pivot, you can pivot on a weekly basis and not necessarily wait until the end of the month or until the end of the quarter.
Yeah, so I think a big takeaway from that is really just that if you're running a business, especially if you're running a business from afar, you need to know what those key numbers are that are looking and are indicators for your business, whatever business it is. And then those need to be reported on a regular basis. And I'm not sure, maybe a week is right for pretty much everybody. Maybe it's every 2 weeks, but whatever it is, you need to constantly be looking at those numbers. You have to know which numbers you're looking for first. And then once you figure that out, then, looking at those regularly.
Well, and I think, to tie into this, one of the things our, director of revenue cycle management brought up is that they are very good at their billing processes and their billing systems and making sure that the claims are going out on a timely fashion, that they're following up on those when they get denied or they get missed. And really what she called it was, protecting the dollars, making sure that, yes, the vital organ of the practice is, one of the vital organs of the practice is the practice support center, but another vital organ of the practice is also making sure you're collecting what you're rendering.
Right, for sure. I mean, we can render all day long, and if we can't collect on any of that, then, we're only going to be able to do that for a few weeks or a couple of months, and then it's all over. So I think knowing just her, I think she really takes it as part of her mission to really protect that. And she's trained her staff to think that way. And so therefore we have a good team there now that really is all of one mind about making sure that, the services that we do render, we're able to collect on, whether it's through insurance or billing or whatever we're doing.
Well, and one of the things that, we've thought about, in moving forward over the next couple of Fridays is trying to invite some of our own staff to come on and interview them about, some of the things that we do well and some of the things we need to work on, and also trying to get some things that, maybe they've learned while working for us and being able to kind of really pull back the curtain on them too. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks we can do that. But our purpose of these Friday episodes is really to try to, pull back the curtain of our businesses, whether it be our medical practices or my real estate investment company called handfordcapital.com, or another, one of our entities that we do. It's an online company. So there's lots of different things that we're always working on in each one of these entities that keep us rather busy and always keeps us on our toes. And so there's lots of content and lots of, valuable lessons that I feel like, even though we're in it and we're working through it, we can discuss those things on the podcast and really, help you in your business as you start to, face some of these same challenges.
Yeah, so we'll do that over the next couple of Fridays. We'll pick some people to come on. Only people that like us, though, right? 'Cause we want... Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today on this Friday episode of Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs. We face tough decisions as entrepreneurs every day, and be sure to tune in to our daily podcast of Monday through Thursdays, our long-form interviews where we interview entrepreneurs from around the world on tough decisions that they've made. And we also, on Fridays, we have this particular show that you're listening to. And then on Saturdays, we have one called Step Up Your Game with Dan, where I go through different ways and try to invite people to help us learn strategies and tips on how to increase your sales, productivity, and or marketing. And then on Sundays, we have my wife, Dennae, here. She does a show called Survive and Thrive with Dennae. Do you want to go ahead and tease the book that you guys are going through right now on Sunday show?
Sure. So right now we are discussing some topics that I've selected from a book called How Children Succeed, and very, very interesting to learn what people who are successful have in common. It's a book about children, helping children succeed, but it really carries over into all aspects of life, employment, personal, really understanding the characteristics that help people succeed. And it's not what you think. So tune in this Sunday. We're going to continue our discussion on those topics. And I think you'll learn a lot. I think you'll find it really interesting. And it's been a challenge to me even to sort of look at myself and go, are these really important qualities, in my life on a regular basis?
All right, that's all we have for you today on this episode of Tough Decisions for Entrepreneurs. Hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.